If you've ever seen our videos, you know I love coffee, you know I make a lot of mead. How come I never put them together? Hi, I'm Brian.
I'm Derica, and you're watching City Studying Brews. Today we're making a coffee mel, aka coffee mead.
Now, I've made this before, okay? Just for myself. And if you watched our podcast, you know that I don't generally take notes. And I tend to just throw things together sometimes just for our own uses, like a coffee mel. I had some cold brew left, and I had some honey laying around, and I said, hey, let's just put them together. I think it was something like maybe a quart to a quart and a half of coffee, and I think it was about 3 pounds of honey, but I'm not really sure. It might have even only been a half gallon that I made. Yeah, it was like a year ago. I don't know. I still have some of it. It's not bad. But it wasn't my favorite meat ever. That's why it's taken so long. But a lot of people have asked me to make one. So I did a little bit of research, looked around a bit, saw what some other people have done, and saw what they had problems with and said, okay, let me improve on that. Now, what I'm talking about is I watched Man Made Mead. He did 3 ways. And there's actually a link to that video down below. And what I found out from him is he used the grounds and things like that, and he didn't like the way that came out. So I had a feeling that was going to happen because when I did mine, I just used cold brew and I knew it came out great. So make sure you use cold brew coffee. Let me explain how I made my cold brew. We have about 2 quarts here, okay? That is 100 grams of coarsely, very coarsely ground beans. The beans were a Starbucks espresso roast. So they're good beans, nice quality. I didn't let it go the full 24 hours. It went about maybe 18 to 19 hours. I tasted it. Taste your coffee. Taste your ingredients. Make sure you know what you're putting in your mead. When I tasted this, it came out, I would say, a medium strength coffee. So it's not overly strong. It's not weak. I would certainly drink this the way it is, which means it's probably good to use in my mead. So that's about 2 quarts of the cold brew coffee. I'm doing that because the one thing I know about coffee is if you leave the grinds in, there's a tendency for coffee to over extract. And anything more than a day on cold brew is over extracted. And with hot coffee, even a few minutes can be over extracted. So I didn't want to leave grounds in. I filtered this like 4 times. There's probably still some silt in the bottom, and we won't get to that. Like I'm going to make sure that doesn't get in there because I don't want any grinds in my mead because that leads to bitterness from over extraction. So I learned something from watching some other mead videos, and shout out to Man Made Meads.
So, in Brian's multitude of ways that he makes coffee for his own enjoyment, he's learned a thing or two about coffee itself.
Two.
Just
2 things.
And those things actually are going to assist in what we're brewing today. Now, the reason why he chose cold brew over a traditional
Reasons.
hot brewing is because cold brew and hot brew have different chemical properties.
Oh yeah, they're totally different.
You want to expand on that?
Some major differences are, first, cold brew doesn't have some of the acidic properties that regular coffee has, which could be bad for brewing. Cold brew also doesn't get the bitter properties out of coffee a lot of time. It's more sweet. Like that's the first thing that people say. It tastes sweet. Right. It doesn't have the bitter components because that's over extraction again. And there's just so much to it that makes it a better option for this, okay? The reason why I'm not using beans, though, isn't just for over extraction. It's I now have a coffee. It is a exact strength, exact ingredients, and things like that. It's not the longer it sits, the more coffee is going to be made or the more coffee flavor is going to come out. There's none of that. This is done. It's kind of like when we make a tea for using in tannins. If you just threw a tea bag in, that's going to keep extracting forever. But if you make a tea, take the tea bag out, strain it, and just use the liquid, now you have a predetermined amount of tannins, or in this case, coffee, that you're putting into your mead. How did I come up with 2 quarts? Well, because I decided that this is kind of a medium strength, I thought it probably would be too strong to use a gallon of this with honey. So I thought, let's dilute this by half. Thus, 2 quarts over a gallon. It's roughly going to be half because the honey's going to take up some of that space. But that's how I came to that. We're going to use 3.5 pounds of our sweet squeeze honey. There's a link for that in the description below too. Some people have been asking me, where do I get honey? How can I find it? We love this stuff. You get it right off Amazon. So if you're anywhere where Amazon delivers, you can get that. If you're in another country, our links may not work for you, and I'm very sorry. We tried to make that work, and it became a massacre. It wasn't good. So anyway, let's get started on this. The first thing that we do anytime is we always use the self-stirring cup. We take a little bit of water, which I have right over here, and I pour some water into this cup. Now this self-stirring cup is actually just a replacement cup from a Magic Bullet blender, but it has ribs on the side, so when you do this, hear that? It stirs on its own. It's just nice and easy. Otherwise you have to use a spoon, which means you have to sanitize that too. On and on and on and on and on. I am using, as you can see, a previously opened packet. Yes, I saved them. Fold it up, put a piece of tape on it, stick it in the fridge. This has been refrigerated. This is Lalvin 71B yeast. It is my new favorite yeast for brewing with. And you might be wondering, well, if that's known for fruity esters and things like that, why would you use it with coffee? 2 reasons. First, it was open, so I want to use it up. Second, what makes you think that coffee doesn't have fruity flavors? Coffee has over 2,000 different flavor compounds, okay? Some of those give everything from a cherry feel to a chocolate to various fruits. People have even said they taste banana and things like that. Apricot is very common in coffee. So why not bring some of those flavors out and make this even more interesting? Kind of like a fruity coffee mead. Now, if you have ever watched me talk about coffee, you know. What kind of flavored coffee do I like? I like coffee flavored coffee. So why am I doing this? Because these are the flavors inherent in the coffee. I just want to enhance them and bring them out. I'm not adding fruit to my coffee, because no.
But if you are the type of person who likes your coffee flavored other than just coffee, then
We can't be friends anymore.
Then you can put additions into this, but I would
wouldn't.
suggest doing it in secondary, not primary.
Yeah, that's another thing that comes up a lot is if you're brand new to brewing and you've never made a mead or a wine or anything before, don't try coming up with your own recipe. Trust me, I did it. It didn't work very well. I made a lot of, well, not a lot. I made a few very, very, very bad brews to the point that we didn't drink them. Some of them got thrown down the drain. It was bad. Then I started using other people's recipes and went, oh, that's how that works. And I learned from there. Do the same thing. Use our stuff. Anyway, what I'm doing, I just put the yeast in here, in some water, and I stirred it up. It's going to take about 10 minutes for that to fully dissolve and all that kind of thing. What we're doing is hydrating it. We're not really so much activating it, although it sort of is. We're just kind of getting it ready to be in a must. That's all. Nothing big. Don't read too much into it. I'm just going to set it over here. You can
Now,
watch
the
it.
water he used for that is from the pitcher that we
The same water
prepared
that we're
for the
gonna
water
use
for
for
this. And it is our filtered water, so the chlorine and any sediment and other weirdness has been removed.
Yes.
That has come up before in questions about what type of water to use.
Somebody said that Fiji water is actually the best water, and I find nothing that I can disagree with them about. I'm actually going to have to get some and try it to see how does our water really compare, because I've always thought our water was pretty good. But you know, when people say stuff like that, I got to go, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to check that. Maybe I'm right, and I need to prove that. So, anyway, to get started, we're going to put all of our stuff into this. This is just a carboy. It's just a 1-gallon fermenter.
It's still got sanitizer liquid in it.
It has sanitizer liquid in it. I don't like having sanitizer liquid in my brews. It doesn't really hurt you in that kind of quantity, but hey, you know, why dilute it if I don't have to? So the first thing that I'm actually going to do is I'm going to measure out our honey, okay? So let me go get a scale. All right, so to use this, really simple, you might notice new scale. This one is actually accurate to within 1 gram versus our other one, which was accurate to within 2. The difference is this one can only hold 17 pounds maximum, that one can hold 50. So 1 gallon, we're perfectly fine. Pints a pound the world around, so that means that it's like 8 pounds per gallon plus the bottle. Yeah, we should be fine. But I do want to change it to pounds and ounces. And we're going to tear that out so that I am at 0. I'm going to take my funnel and I'm going to stick it in the top there, which you're barely going to be able to see it, but it's okay. You get the gist. I am putting in 3.5 pounds of honey. Okay, so that's 3 pounds, 8 ounces. Real simple. Now, as you're pouring this, you want to be careful that you don't hold the funnel or anything like that, because I'm actually weighing this right into here. So if I touch that funnel or in any way affect it, I am actually going to change that weight, possibly. Okay, so there's our 3 pounds, 8 ounces of honey. Now, you'll you might not see it, but there is a little stream of honey still coming off that funnel. I'm leaving that there because there's still honey in that funnel that I want to come out. Which brings me to the next question that somebody might have asked me is why didn't I put the coffee in first so I can mix the honey? Well, that's why. I want to use that coffee to rinse the honey off. I'll be right back. All right, another thing that I did with the honey is it was sitting in
The red bucket of sanitization!
which we sanitized all this stuff in, and it was sitting in there in warm water. That way it thins out just a little bit, makes it a little easier to pour, a little easier to mix. So right now, I'm going to pour in some of our coffee, not even all of it, maybe just like half. And I'm just trying to rinse that funnel out. A little more than half probably, but I've half filled our fermenter. We're going to take this and put it back into sanitization liquid. And may I have the solid stopper, please? Now, you're probably wondering why I only filled it halfway. Well, in the beginning of fermentation, you want to get oxygen into your must, okay? So there's a lot of air in here right now, and when I shake this up, it's going to force that oxygen in there. Also, people have been bugging me forever to just use a solid stopper for this. Guess what? We found it! Saves my thumbs. So stick it in there and shake the bejesus out of it. And I mean really shake it up good. I like to release the pressure every now and then because sometimes it does build up and I really don't want to have it spray me when I'm done. I just do that. Okay, that seems to be shaken up pretty good. So let me take the stopper out and we're just going to rinse that off real quick because I'm going to use it again. Also, something else that people have said along the way. People are like, oh yeah, well you sanitized everything, then you put it on that towel and you touch it with your hands. Okay. My hands have been in and out of sanitizer the whole time. Can you really sterilize your hands? Well, I don't know. Ask a doctor. They seem to. And I don't know, you just don't need to get crazy about this. Otherwise, if I don't touch things with my hands, how am I going to put it together? So, there's that too.
So this is a brand new clean
yeah.
dish towel that has had nothing but sanitized liquid
Yeah,
on it.
it's kind of damp with sanitizer liquid. So, just doing this, I'm sanitizing my hand. I mean, really. Anyway, so let's grab that funnel one more. So now that we're mixed up, what I'm going to do is add the rest of our coffee. And I'm going to be careful to not get the sludge at the bottom. I probably will get some, but I don't want to put too much of that in there. Okay, the rest, see how much darker that got? That's just sludge. I don't want that in there because, again, over extraction. Even that little bit could affect it in this quantity that we're working with. Now, here's the thing. Once you get to this point, there's not much left to do, okay? I don't want to over fill this, so I only want to be to about here. So, you know what? I'm just going to stir up my yeast. I'm going to add it in now because I put a lot of water in here. I don't want to not have any. And I still have water to add after this. I want to be able to rinse this cup out. So I'm just going to pour it in right now. Derek got a little nervous there. There's really nothing there. Grab my water and just kind of rinse this cup out. Oh, something I didn't mention. The amount of yeast used. I use either a half packet or a full packet. Okay, half packet is anything up to about 3 gallons. Full packet for 3 gallons or more. And again, I'm just going to rinse this through and pour it in. Nice and simple. Now, because my yeast is already in there, this is technically a must now, and it's starting. We are going to take a gravity reading in a few minutes, but if you notice, there's still not enough in there. I want to put some water in. So this is where I talk about we are kind of diluting that must. Don't worry about the foam too much. I'm looking at the actual level of liquid. Because, I want to get as much out of this as I can. But, go too far. See that foam? It'll be in your airlock. You don't want to do that. I could go a little bit more. I like to live dangerously. See, that was another mouthful of meat, Just saying. All right. So now, what do? Stick that back in there, and I'm going to shake it up again. I'm emphasizing shaking this up because aeration for the first bit is very important. Your colony wants to build up. They reproduce first. And so no matter how much yeast you put in, you're going to get 100 times or more, 1,000 times more yeast in the colony when it's done. So you want to give it oxygen so it can do that. Once it consumes all that oxygen, that's when it goes to work making alcohol. So you want the best colony you can get, right? Now, I didn't fill it first because it's a lot harder to mix now. I can't really get a good shaking action. It's very close to the top. There's just not a lot of room to work with. So I'm glad I did that earlier, but I can get a little bit. Okay. It actually looks like it's about to geyser out, but it's not. Now, I want to take a reading. To take a reading, there's a lot of ways. There's wine thieves and things like that. I like to use a turkey baster. It's just nice and easy. This time I'm going to do it a little bit different though. People yell at me because I always tend to drop my hydrometer in after. This time I'll just leave it in there. But what I do want to do is get below that foam. As long as it's floating, that's all we really need. Thank you. So by avoiding all that foam, I'm not getting an artificial reading. I'm actually getting a true reading of what this should be. And it's probably going to be somewhere around like 1.100, 1.110, something like that. But, you know, I'll just actually take a reading and tell you instead of guessing here. It's a little higher than I thought it should be. But it's at 1.122. Now, I was hoping for like 1.100. It's a little bit higher than I really want. But it's okay because I know that this yeast can go to about 14%, and I'm hoping that it does. And I'm hoping that it stops right around 14%, because that way I'll get a little bit of sweetness in there, because, you know, I like a little sugar with my coffee. Now, this right here, some people throw this away. Some people drink it. I'm not sure I want to do either one of those things. I mean, there's live yeast in here now. I don't want to do that. And why would I throw this away? This is like, you know, 80, 74 milliliters. Who wants to throw away 74 milliliters of mead? It's good stuff. Everything's been sanitized. It's all clean. So there's no reason to not put it back in here. Plus, oxygenation at this stage is welcomed. So it's a good thing. And now, the airlock. Can you guess how much these are? The reason you use an airlock, it keeps bugs out. Okay? And it lets oxygen be forced out and keeps CO2 in, keeping things from going bad, from oxygenating, all that. The way it works is very, very simple. If you notice, the tube goes up, then down, then up. It works like the trap in your sink. So the air is pushed through, and usually it's going to be CO2 coming out. It pushes through, pushes this side of the water down, and this side will go all the way up, and it forces things through the water. But nothing can come back through. If you see bugs and stuff in here, that means it did its job. It doesn't mean you failed. It actually means it worked. It prevents them from getting into here, which would be bad.
If you enjoy the mesmerizing bubble of an airlock, we actually did a video just on a bubbling airlock.
People bugged me for months, so
Link
I finally
in the
did it.
description below.
Okay. What's going to happen now? This is going to get put under the desk of fermentation, which is also known as my office desk, where I do all my editing, and I get to listen to the little bloop, bloop, bloop all day long. It's kind of cool. What do I expect to occur, and what should you expect if you follow this recipe? Now, if you follow this recipe exactly, and you do things as I do, which means to store this in an area that gets about 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, you should expect this to start activating in 12 to 24 hours, okay? Now, take that with a grain of salt, because it could take up to 72 hours or sometimes even a little bit more, and that's okay. If you see absolutely no airlock activity after that time, first, make sure this is sealed. That's the number one reason why you don't see activity in the airlock. If after 4 or 5 days you still see no activity, it's okay. Take that airlock off, pitch more yeast, shake it all up, put it back on, give it another 3 to 5 days. It should probably start. If it still doesn't, ask me a question, ask me in the comments below, and I'll see if we can help you out, because it means something went wrong, and we'll have to figure out what it is, and we'll see if we can work it out for you. But once this starts, you'll see bubble activity. Do not count bubbles. Do not tell me how often it bubbles. Don't worry about any of that. They're going to be different rates. It'll go really fast in the beginning, and then it'll start to taper off. I'll probably leave this for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks before I even touch it. Now, every day when I sit down, I will probably give this a shake. What do I mean by a shake? I'll lift it up like this and literally do this. The The bubbles will go like crazy when you do that, okay? Just be careful that it doesn't overflow because you can easily push everything right out. So be careful with that. But I've been doing that, and I do that for probably about the first 2 to 3 weeks, and then I don't touch it for another at least 3 weeks. That way it can settle out, all the yeast and yeast settle to the bottom, and it's good. That's how you know that it's getting close to being finished. Why do I shake it up? Well, there's a lot of reasons. One, I degas it. Nobody likes to swim in their own waste, yeast included. So their waste is the CO2. I want to get that CO2 out. That way they have more room to work with and less waste to have to deal with. So it's a good thing to do. At the end of the 6 weeks or so, you'll probably see another video because we'll rack this off and we'll show you how it's doing. We'll do a taste test and let you know how it goes. If you like this video, give us a like. If you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe. And don't forget to hit that little bell notification icon so that YouTube lets you know everything that we're up to. And if you'd like to be a bigger part of the channel, help support us, keep things going, and be part of our VIP club on Facebook, join us on Patreon. There are links below on how to do that. But in the meantime, as always, guys, thanks for watching and have a great day.
Bye-bye.